The alien armada filled the void like a moving continent. Thousands of warships hung in perfect formation above the blue-white glow of the contested star system. Dreadnoughts the size of cities. Carriers layered with weapon spines. Escort wings so dense they blurred into metallic clouds. Every species represented had brought its finest. This was not a patrol. It was a display. Victory, already decided. Inside the command nexus of the Alliance flagship, a vast circular chamber pulsed with holograms and shifting star maps. Alien admirals stood or floated at their stations, surrounded by data streams and tactical projections. The mood was relaxed. Confidence. Almost bored. Then the sensor officer stiffened. Contact, the officer announced. Terran vessels entering the system perimeter. Several heads turned. A few mandibles twitched with interest. Display, ordered the fleet commander. The hologram shifted. Laughter erupted. At the center of the projection floated a single Terran ship. Long dark. Unremarkable. Behind it followed a handful of smaller escorts. Barely a screen, barely worth naming a formation. No carriers. No heavy artillery platforms. No reserve fleets lurking behind them. Just that. The chamber filled with open mockery. That's it, one admiral scoffed. They sent that, another laughed. Perhaps the humans misunderstood the threat, a third added. Or perhaps this is a diplomatic gesture. The fleet commander leaned forward, studying the image. The Terran ship looked old by galactic standards. No glowing armor. No exotic energy flares. Its hull was matte, scarred, practical. A tool, not a trophy. Scan them, the commander said. The sensor teams complied. Moments passed. Frowns replaced smiles. No shield bloom detected, an analyst reported. No active weapon charge, said another. No aggressive posture. More laughter. They've come to surrender, someone joked. The Terran ship slowed and stopped precisely at the edge of the weapon's range. It did not attempt to maneuver. It did not broadcast threats or demands. It simply waited. The fleet commander raised a claw. Silence returned. Open a channel, he ordered. A signal was sent. No response. Seconds stretched. Perhaps they are afraid, an admiral said. Or perhaps their communications are primitive. Before anyone could reply, the sensor officer spoke again, quietly this time. There is an anomaly. The laughter did not return. What kind of anomaly? The commander asked. Mass readings, the officer said. Inside the Terran ship. How large? Another voice asked. The officer hesitated. Too large. That drew attention. The chamber's central display shifted, overlaying the Terran ship with sensor outlines and calculations. Internal mass density climbed steadily, red warning lines flickering across the hologram. That's impossible, an engineer muttered. That much mass would collapse the hull. But it hasn't, the sensor officer replied. The fleet commander narrowed his eyes. Refine the scan. The system strained. Data streams flooded the room. The Terran ship remained still, patient, as if it knew it was being watched. Then something changed. The Terran ship's outer lights dimmed. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. Just off. No, wait, the sensor officer said. They're not powering down. They're disengaging external systems. A beat. Why would anyone do that in a combat zone? An admiral asked. The answer came too quickly. All visible weapons are offline, the officer said. Shields are gone. The chamber went silent. No shields. No active defenses. The Terran ship was exposed. That's either surrender, someone whispered, or madness. The fleet commander stared at the projection. He had fought wars across 3 centuries. He had seen traps, bluffs, sacrifices, and desperation. This did not feel like any of them. Check historical records, he said. Full Terran military history. No filters. The archives responded instantly. Battles. Skirmishes. Defensive wars. Always outnumbered. Always surviving. Never annihilated. Never conquered. Never fully understood. A junior analyst spoke up, voice tight. Commander, I'm finding something strange. This ship's design patterns don't match modern Terran fleets. How old? The commander asked. The analyst swallowed. Older than their recorded spaceflight era. That was impossible. Run it again, the commander said. The analyst did. The result did not change. The Terran ship was built using methods humanity should not have possessed at the time. Layered hull compression. Internal structures folded in ways that defied known engineering logic. This ship was not a prototype. It was a survivor. The Terran vessel rotated slowly, presenting its broadside, not in challenge, but in exposure, as if inviting the galaxy to look closer. The sensor officer's voice dropped to a whisper. "Commander, the mass anomaly isn't a reactor." "What is it?" the commander asked. A pause. "I don't know," the officer said. "But it's not meant to generate energy." Silence pressed down on the chamber. One of the admirals laughed nervously. "Perhaps it's a bluff. Humans are known for psychology." The fleet commander did not laugh. "Prepare a warning strike," he said at last. "Minimal yield. Let them understand their mistake." Weapons officers acknowledged the order. Targeting systems locked onto the Terran ship with ease. No shields. No evasive movement. The human vessel did nothing to resist. The Alliance fleet was ready to fire. Just before the command was given, the Terran ship transmitted a signal. Not a demand. Not a threat. A single sentence, calm and clear. "This is not a fleet," the message said. "This is a lesson." The commander's hand froze in the air. And somewhere deep within the Terran ship, something ancient, heavy, and patient began to wake. The Alliance fleet did not fire. Not yet. Across thousands of bridges, commanders hesitated, not because they feared the Terran ship, but because something about the moment felt wrong. The warning message replayed again and again across internal channels. "This is not a fleet. This is a lesson." It was not how desperate species spoke. It was how teachers did. "Proceed with the strike," the fleet commander finally ordered. His voice was steady, but the chamber no longer felt relaxed. Low yield. No fatalities intended. Weapons crews acknowledged. Energy coils charged. Targeting reticles settled onto the exposed hull of the Terran ship. The human vessel remained motionless, drifting against the distant glow of the star. No shields. No countermeasures. No response. Fire. A coordinated volley of precision energy weapons streaked across space. Clean. Controlled. Meant to intimidate, not destroy. The shots hit. And vanished. Not deflected. Not absorbed. Not dissipated. They simply ceased to exist, swallowed by a distortion that flickered briefly around the Terran hull like heat haze, and then disappeared. Silence followed. Weapons officers stared at their consoles. "Confirm impact," one demanded. "No energy return," another replied. "No radiation spike. No debris." The fleet commander felt a slow tightening in his chest. Fire again. Different frequency. Another volley. Same result. The Terran ship did not move. Across the Alliance fleet, confidence began to fray, not loudly, not yet, but in subtle ways. Voices dropped. Commands became more precise. Humor vanished completely. "Scan the space around the target," the commander ordered. Sensors adjusted. That was when the readings changed. Space itself around the Terran ship was wrong. Not distorted violently, not torn, but compressed. As if reality had been folded inward and stitched shut again. "That region is denser than vacuum should allow," a physicist reported. "They've altered local constants." "Impossible," someone snapped. "No," the physicist replied quietly. "Uncommon." The Terran ship finally moved. Not forward. Not backward. It rotated, slowly, deliberately, aligning itself with the densest cluster of Alliance warships. Not the largest. Not the command ship. But the most advanced battleship in the formation. A pride vessel. A symbol. "Why that one?" an admiral asked. No one answered. The Terran escorts adjusted their positions as well, forming a loose arc around their flagship. They did not accelerate. They did not break formation. They drifted like predators that knew escape was impossible. A communications officer leaned forward. "Commander, internal Alliance channels are flooding with requests. Several fleets are asking for permission to withdraw to safer ranges." "Denied," the commander said sharply. No one moves. Another officer spoke, hesitant. "Sir, the Terran ship is charging something." "Weapons?" the commander asked. "No." Or, the officer frowned at the data. "It doesn't match any weapon profile we know." The chamber darkened as projections updated. Power flow inside the Terran ship surged, but not outward. It moved inward, spiraling toward the ship's core, compressing, stabilizing. "It's not building energy," the physicist said. "It's shaping it." "What does that mean?" an admiral demanded. "It means," the physicist replied, "they're preparing an effect, not a blast." The Terran commander appeared on the main display at last. "Humans." unadorned, calm, no threats, no raised voice, no visible anger. We asked you to listen, the human said evenly. You chose to test us instead. The fleet commander straightened. You entered restricted space with an armed force. We entered contested space, the Terran replied. With restraint. You call this restraint? An admiral snapped. The Terran commander's eyes flicked toward the battleship, now highlighted on the tactical display. Yes. The human raised a hand. The Terran ship fired. There was no beam, no projectile, no flash. Space around the targeted battleship collapsed. For a fraction of a second, the vessel appeared to fold inward, its hull compressing, stretching, twisting as if reality itself rejected its presence. Then it vanished. Gone. No explosion. No wreckage. No energy wave. Just an empty void where a capital ship had been. The Alliance fleet froze. Shock rippled through every formation. Emergency alarms screamed as targeting systems lost reference points. Officers shouted, voices sharp with disbelief. What happened? Where did it go? Was that a stealth jump? The physicists shook their heads slowly. No jump signature. No residual wake. The commander swallowed. Then where? It was removed, the physicist said. Not destroyed. Not displaced. Removed. The Terran commander spoke again. That ship no longer exists in your operational reality, the human said calmly. We did not kill its crew. We did not scatter debris. We did not poison space. A pause. We solved the war so we wouldn't have to keep fighting it. The Alliance fleet did not respond. They couldn't, because in that moment, something fundamental shifted. This was not a weapon meant for conquest. It did not harvest resources. It did not claim territory. It erased capability. A fleet built on dominance had no answer to that. Commander, a communications officer whispered, multiple allied fleets are attempting to disengage anyway. Before the commander could respond, alarms flared. Jump drives across the formation failed to initialize. Hyperlane calculations returned errors. Navigation systems began looping false data. The Terran ship had not fired again. It did not need to. You are contained, the Terran commander said. Not trapped. Contained. The human leaned slightly forward. We are not here to punish you. We are here to correct an assumption. The fleet commander finally found his voice. And what assumption is that? That number equals safety, Terran replied. That size equals strength. That laughter equals superiority. Silence followed. Across the Alliance fleet, commanders realized reinforcements would not help. More ships would only mean more losses. The battlefield itself belonged to humanity now. The Terran ship powered down its internal charge. The distortion around it faded, but the message remained. This was not an escalation. This was a demonstration. The Terran commander delivered one final line before cutting the channel. This is the only warning we give. The Alliance fleet drifted in stunned silence, surrounded by human ships that had barely moved, barely spoken, and had already ended the war before it began. Far from Earth. Far from home. The galaxy finally understood something it should have learned long ago. Humanity did not fight to win. They fought to make sure there would never be a second round. Silence spread faster than panic ever could. Across the Alliance fleet, thousands of commanders stared at the empty space where a battleship had existed moments ago. No debris field. No radiation haze. No energy shockwave expanding through the formation. Just absence. It was wrong in a way that made even veteran tacticians uneasy. War, no matter how advanced, always left evidence. Wreckage. Signals. Graves. This left nothing. The fleet commander forced himself to breathe slowly. Status reports, he ordered. They came in unevenly. Battleship Corvan Ascendant, no response. Crew biosigns lost. Not fading. Just gone. Local spacetime readings are unstable, but settling. No hostile follow-up detected. No follow-up. That was what unsettled him most. The Terran ship did not advance. It did not threaten. It did not exploit the opening it had just created. It waited. The Alliance formation tightened instinctively. Escorts moved closer to capital ships. Drones deployed in defensive patterns. Weapons crews hovered over firing commands, fingers tense, uncertain. Fear crept in. Not sharp, not explosive, but heavy and cold. A senior strategist spoke quietly. Commander, that wasn't a strike. It was a statement. The commander nodded grimly. Humans are telling us what could happen. And what they chose not to do, the strategist added. The Terran commander reappeared on the main display, uninvited but unopposed. Alliance firewalls did not stop the signal. They hadn't even slowed it. The human's expression had not changed. "We will explain once," the Terran said. "After that, your decisions are your responsibility." No one interrupted. "We do not destroy fleets anymore," the human continued. "We remove them from relevance." The fleet commander narrowed his eyes. "You erased a warship." "No," the Terran corrected calmly. "We erased an assumption." The human gestured, and new data appeared on the Alliance displays. Not a threat, not a targeting solution. Historical records, ancient human conflicts, planetary wars, near-extinction events, long, brutal struggles fought with limited resources and no outside help. "You believed our technology plateaued because we stopped competing," Terrence said. "The truth is simpler. We stopped racing others and started racing outcomes." "What does that mean?" an admiral demanded. "It means," the Terran replied, "we stopped asking how to win wars and started asking how to end them forever." The data shifted again. Simulations played out at terrifying speed. Fleet engagements where no ship exploded. Invasions halted without bombardment. Armadas rendered inert, stranded, irrelevant. "This is not a weapon of terror," the Terran continued. "It is a weapon of limitation." The fleet commander felt something cold settle in his core. "You could have done this to all of us." "Yes," the Terran said simply. A pause. "We didn't." Across the Alliance fleet, fear hardened into something worse. Understanding. A communications officer leaned toward the commander. "Sir, internal morale is collapsing. Some captains are requesting permission to power down weapons to avoid provocation." "Denied," the commander said automatically, then hesitated. "Stand by." The Terran ship shifted again. Not toward the fleet. Away from it. The movement was subtle, almost dismissive, as if the human vessel had already finished its point and was preparing to leave. That caused panic. "They're repositioning," someone shouted. "Are they charging again? Are we about to lose another ship?" "No," the physicist said, voice tight with awe. "They're not targeting us." The projections zoomed outward. The Terran ship was aligning itself with the star at the system's center. "What are they doing?" the commander demanded. The physicist swallowed. "Demonstrating scale." The Terran commander spoke once more. "You assumed our fleet was small because you counted hulls," the human said. "You never counted the effects." The Terran ship activated its system again, but this time, it did not aim. It pulsed. Space across the system responded. Not violently. Not destructively. Gravitational readings stabilized. Radiation storms near the star vanished. Unstable asteroid belts quieted, their trajectories subtly corrected. The system, once volatile, once contested, became calm. Engineers across the Alliance fleet stared in disbelief as their instruments recalibrated themselves, forced into new, stable baselines. "They're fixing the system," an officer whispered. "Yes," the physicist said, "and showing us they could have broken it instead." The message was unmistakable. Humanity could end fleets. Humanity could rewrite environments. And humanity chose restraint by default. The Terran commander's voice carried no pride. "You came here to fight over resources," the human said. "We came here because instability spreads. Wars multiply, and you were about to light a fire you couldn't put out." The fleet commander clenched his fists. "So this was never about us." "No," Terran replied. "It was about what comes after you." A long silence followed. Then an unexpected signal appeared. One of the smaller Alliance fleets, an outer rim power, young and cautious, powered down its weapons and broadcast surrender. Not to the Terrans. To reality. Others followed. Not formally. Not ceremonially. But quietly, systems going dark, crews stepping back from firing controls. They had seen enough. The fleet commander felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him. He had been raised to believe strength was measured in numbers, in firepower, in dominance. All of it felt childish now. He opened a channel to the Terran ship. "You could rule this space," he said. "No one could stop you." The Terran commander shook his head. "We don't rule," the human said. "We intervene." "For what purpose?" The human did not answer immediately. "When we were young," the Terran said at last, "the universe was loud with threats. Everyone fought to be heard. We survived by learning when silence was stronger." The Terran ship began to withdraw from the star's alignment, its task complete. You laughed because our fleet was small, Terran finished. You were wrong because you mistook quiet for weakness. The channel closed. The Terran ships did not chase. They did not claim territory. They did not issue demands. They simply waited, long enough for the lesson to settle. Across the Alliance fleet, commanders understood the truth. The war had never started, and it had already been decided. Because humanity did not need to conquer the galaxy. They only needed to prove they could end it, and chose not to. The Alliance fleet remained where it was. Not because it was trapped, though it was, but because no one wanted to be the first to move. Orders went unanswered. Chains of command stalled. Admirals who once barked commands now sat in silence, staring at tactical displays that no longer felt like tools of control. The Terran ships drifted calmly at the system's edge. They did not press their advantage. That unsettled everyone. In war, pressure was expected. Exploitation, demands, ultimatums. But the humans did nothing. They waited, as if the outcome was already decided and time no longer mattered. The fleet commander finally broke the silence. Open all internal channels, he ordered. I want full situational awareness. No filters. The result was chaos. Not panic, but confusion layered with fear. Some captains argued for immediate surrender. Others insisted this was still a bluff. A few demanded permission to sacrifice ships just to understand the Terran weapon. But beneath every argument was the same unspoken truth. No one knew how to fight humans anymore. A senior intelligence officer stepped forward, her voice steady but strained. Commander, our analysts have compiled a behavioral profile. Proceed, he said. They're not posturing, she continued. They're not threatening escalation. They're not consolidating power. Every move so far aligns with one objective. And that is? The commander asked. She hesitated. Containment. Not of us. Of the situation. The commander frowned. Explain. The officer gestured to the display. They neutralized one ship. Not the largest, not the flagship, but the most advanced symbol of dominance. Then they stabilized the system itself. They prevented us from retreating, but also from advancing. They froze the board. The commander murmured. Yes, she said. They turned a battlefield into a classroom. Across the void, the Terran flagship pulsed faintly. Not a weapon charge, but a low, steady signal broadcast on open frequencies. It was not a message. It was data. Entire libraries poured into Alliance networks. Human history, conflicts, failures, near extinctions. Not propaganda. Not edited triumphs. Raw truth. Civil wars that nearly wiped them out. Environmental collapse, they barely survived. Wars fought with desperation, not glory. Entire generations lost. Why would a species reveal weakness at such a moment? The answer came slowly, painfully. Because it wasn't a weakness anymore. A cultural analyst whispered, they're showing us the cost. The commander watched footage scroll past, cities burning, populations displaced, scars that lasted centuries. Humans had not become powerful because they loved war. They had become powerful because they hated repeating it. The Terran commander appeared again, not as a broadcast override this time, but as a shared invitation. Any ship could receive it. Any crew could watch. The humans stood in a plain command space. No banners. No medals. No intimidation. When we were young, the Terran said, we believed survival meant winning. The human paused, letting the words settle. We were wrong. Across the Alliance fleet, countless beings listened in silence. Winning wars only teaches you how to fight the next one. The Terran continued. Losing teaches you nothing. So we learned something else. The Terran raised a hand, and the data streams shifted again. Human engineering doctrines. Not weapon specifications, but principles. End conflict quickly. Remove capacity, not life. Never escalate if a lesson will suffice. The fleet commander felt a chill. These were not rules of conquest. They were rules of guardianship. You laughed at our fleet, the Terran said calmly. Because you expected us to want what you want. The human's gaze hardened, not with anger, but with certainty. We do not seek territory. We do not seek tribute. We do not seek fear. A pause. We seek prevention. One of the Alliance admirals finally spoke, voice tight. Then why come at all? The Terran looked directly into the camera. Because someone was about to die, the human replied. And not just today. The display zoomed outward, projecting simulations of future conflicts branching from this single system. Wars spiraling outward. Refugees flow. Star systems collapsing under endless retaliation. This system was the match, Terran said. You were the spark. The fleet commander felt something crack, not fear, but pride. They had come to demonstrate strength. Humans have come to stop the future. We gave you a warning because we hoped you would listen, the Terran continued. You laughed. So we taught instead. Silence followed. Then something unprecedented happened. A senior admiral from one of the oldest empires stepped forward and bowed. Not theatrically, not fully, but enough. Human commander, the admiral said slowly. What happens now? The Terran did not answer immediately. Now, the human said at last. You decide what kind of galaxy you want to live in. The Terran ships began to power down further. Weapon systems fully offline. No hidden charges. No threatening signatures. A gesture of trust or a demonstration of confidence. The fleet commander stared at the display, realization dawning. They're not afraid of retaliation, he murmured. They're daring us to prove we understand. The intelligence officer nodded. Because if we don't, they'll intervene again. Yes, the commander said. And next time, they won't need a lesson. Across the Alliance fleet, weapons went cold one by one. Not ordered. Chosen. Captains disengaged targeting systems. Crews stepped back from firing stations. Entire armadas drifted, inert and silent. The Terran commander watched it all without comment. Finally, the human spoke one last time. We will remain here until the system is secured and tensions are resolved, the Terran said. After that, we leave. You won't stay? The admiral asked. No, Terran replied. If we stayed, you'd depend on us. The channel closed. The Terran ships held position, quiet guardians in the dark. And across the galaxy, a new truth began to spread, not through fear, but through understanding. Humanity was not the strongest because they could destroy fleets. Humanity was the strongest because they had learned what not to destroy. And for the first time since the standoff began, the Alliance fleet did not feel defeated. They felt corrected. The calm did not last. Across the Alliance fleet, weapons were cold and engines idle. The system hung in a fragile quiet, like breath held too long. For many commanders, it felt like relief. For others, it felt like humiliation. And humiliation, unlike fear, does not fade quietly. Deep within the formation, far from the command nexus and beyond the Terran ship's immediate focus, a splinter group of warships began exchanging encrypted signals. Old rivals bound by pride more than strategy. Species that had built their identity on dominance, not survival. They watched the Terran ships drift, patient, restrained, and they mistook mercy for hesitation. They've shown their hand. One captain hissed over a tight beam channel. They won't escalate. That's their weakness. Another replied, voice sharp with resentment. One ship erased. One system stabilized. All performances. They're bluffing with spectacle. And if they aren't, a third asked. Then we die proving it, the first snapped. Better than kneeling. Their plan was simple. Brutal. Fast. Not an attack on the Terran fleet. An attack on what the Terrans protected. The jump calculations were preloaded long before the order came. Old routes. Civilian lanes. Emergency vectors that ignored Alliance protocols. A dozen ships peeled away from the formation, engines flaring as they forced unstable jumps. Alarms screamed across the command nexus. Unauthorized movement detected. Multiple vessels breaking containment. Trajectory analysis. Destination unknown. The fleet commander surged to his feet. Open channels. Order them back. No response. The physicist's face was drained of color. Commander, they're not running. They're targeting population centers. Outer colonies. Non-combat zones. Silence hit harder than any weapon. They're trying to force a response, the intelligence officer whispered. They want to prove humans are lying. The Terran ships reacted instantly. Not by firing. By moving. The flagship pivoted, escorts fanning outward in patterns that made no tactical sense, unless one understood intent. Space bent subtly as the human ships synchronized, their presence forming a lattice across jump corridors. The Terran commander appeared on every open channel at once. Recall your ships, the human said calmly. Now, the fleet commander swallowed. We are trying. You are failing, Terran replied. This is your last opportunity to prevent what comes next. The splinter group did not slow. They accelerated. Their jumps tore open unstable corridors. ripping through space-time with reckless force. Civilian traffic scattered. Emergency beacons lit the void. The Terran commander closed his eyes for just a moment. When he opened them, the calm was gone. Not replaced by rage. By resolve. Containment protocol revised, the Terran said. Escalation authorized. Minimal loss of life. Maximum clarity. The Terran fleet dispersed, not chasing the splinter ships, not racing to intercept. Instead, they targeted the space between. The physicist's console lit up with impossible math. They're not blocking the jump lanes, she breathed. They're rewriting them. Across the system, invisible boundaries snapped into place. Not walls. Not traps. Rules. The splinter ships emerged from the jump exactly where their calculations said they would, and found nothing. No stars. No planets. No navigable vectors. They hung in a region of space stripped of reference. Coordinates meaningless. Signals echoing back delayed and distorted. Panic erupted inside their hulls. Navigation failure. Emergency jump failed. Where are we? The Terran commander's voice reached them anyway, clear and inescapable. You chose wrong, the human said. But you will still learn. The region they were trapped in began to thin. Not collapsing. Not tearing. Simplifying. Energy gradients flattened. Exotic particles decayed. The very complexity that allowed advanced technology to function drained away like color from a dying image. Weapons went dead first. Then drive. Then life support began switching to emergency modes. Not failing, but shrinking. The ships were not being destroyed. They were being reduced. Back in the command nexus, the fleet commander watched in horror. What are they doing to them? The physicist's voice shook. They're lowering the local physical ceiling, turning advanced space into primitive space. Can it be reversed? She didn't answer. The Terran commander addressed the Alliance fleet again. We warned you, the human said. Not because we feared you, but because we respected the cost of mistakes. The display showed the splinter ships drifting, intact but helpless, systems frozen at a technological level barely sufficient for survival. They will live, the Terran continued. They will return home eventually. Slowly. Carefully. Changed. A pause. They will not threaten anyone again. The fleet commander felt something break inside him. Not pride, not fear, but certainty. This is not war, he said quietly. This is judgment. Yes, the Terran replied. Judgment without extinction. The Terran fleet reassembled, movements precise, restrained, complete. Let this be understood, the human said. We do not punish curiosity. We do not punish fear. We punish disregard. Across the Alliance fleet, no one spoke. No one laughed. No one even breathed too loudly. The Terran commander delivered the final line, not as a threat, but as a boundary. You tested the edge of mercy, the human said. Do not mistake its shape again. The channel closed. The trapped ships drifted in their silent exile, alive, humiliated, remembered. And across the galaxy, a new rule settled into place, heavy and unavoidable. Humanity would forgive ignorance. Humanity would forgive fear. But humanity would never forgive those who endangered the innocent to prove a point. The lesson was complete. And this time, no one doubted it. The system did not return to normal. That was the first thing the Alliance fleet noticed after the splinter ships were neutralized. No alarms blared. No weapons charged. No new threats appeared. Yet something fundamental had changed. The stars felt quieter. Across hundreds of bridges, officers compared readings again and again, convinced their instruments were malfunctioning. Long-range scans showed regions of space stabilizing far beyond expected margins. Hyperlane turbulence dropped to historic lows. Radiation storms that had plagued nearby sectors for centuries simply faded. The galaxy was settling, and that terrified them. The fleet commander stared at the data, unease crawling up his spine. This stabilization, he said slowly. It's not limited to this system. The physicist nodded, eyes wide. It's propagating outward. Slowly, but deliberately. Like a tide. How? An admiral demanded. No fleet is large enough to manage this scale. The physicist hesitated, then answered quietly. Unless the fleet was never the point. The room fell silent. Across the void, the Terran ships had stopped moving altogether. They held position at key gravitational nodes, invisible to the naked eye, but unmistakable to sensors now trained to notice the subtle. They weren't guarding space. They were anchoring it. The intelligence officer pulled up archived data streams. Old reports dismissed as anomalies, unexplained stability zones, regions where piracy collapsed, where wars inexplicably failed to escalate. A pattern emerged, one that made her throat go dry. "Commander," she said carefully, "humans didn't arrive today." The commander turned slowly. "Explain." "They've been here before. Not openly. Not as fleets." She gestured to the display. "These stable zones. They appear near systems humans passed through decades ago. Sometimes centuries." The commander's voice dropped. "You're saying they've been shaping the galaxy quietly?" "Yes," she replied, holding it together. The realization spread through the chamber like frost. Humanity has not been expanding. They had not been hiding. They had been maintaining. The Terran commander appeared again, this time without overriding systems. The humans simply waited until the Alliance opened the channel themselves. They did. "You stabilized this region," the fleet commander said. It was not an accusation. It was a statement. "Yes," the Terran replied. "Why?" The human paused. "Because if we hadn't," the Terran said, "you would have destroyed it fighting over it." The words landed hard. "You're not conquerors," an admiral said hoarsely. "You're not rulers." "No," the Terran agreed. "We are custodians." That word echoed. "Custodians. You could have told us," the fleet commander said. "You could have warned the galaxy." The Terran's expression darkened, not with anger, but with something closer to exhaustion. "We did," the human said. Repeatedly. The display changed. Old diplomatic messages surfaced. Human proposals rejected. Warnings dismissed as fear-mongering. Requests for joint stabilization efforts ignored or mocked. Laughed at. "You didn't listen," the Terran continued. "Because we didn't sound impressive enough. Because we didn't threaten." A bitter silence followed. The Terran gestured, and a new projection appeared. This one theoretical, terrifying. A galaxy without human intervention. Trade routes collapsing. Hyperlane decay spreads like disease. Resource wars escalate into extinction-level conflicts. Entire regions going dark. "This was the trajectory," Terran said. "We corrected it." The fleet commander felt something close to shame. "And the price?" The Terran met his gaze. Isolation. Suspicion. Being underestimated. A pause. "We accepted that cost." Across the Alliance fleet, the weight of that settled heavily. Humanity had let itself be mocked so the galaxy could survive without knowing why. One of the younger admirals whispered, "We called them weak." "Yes," the Terran said quietly. "You did." The Alliance fleet commander straightened. "If you withdraw now, what happens?" The Terran did not answer immediately. "If we leave entirely," the human said at last, "the old patterns return. Slowly. In cycles. You will fight again. And again. And if you stay?" the commander asked. "Then you depend on us," the Terran replied. "And dependency breeds resentment. And resentment breeds rebellion." The human shook their head. "We will not become your gods." The fleet commander exhaled slowly. "Then what do you want?" Terran's answer was simple. "Responsibility," the human said. "Shared responsibility." The data shifted again, this time not simulations, but tools. Human frameworks for conflict de-escalation. Stabilization tech stripped of weaponization. Systems that required cooperation, not control. "We will teach," Terran said. "Once. Then we step back." "And if we fail?" an admiral asked. The Terran's voice hardened, not threatening, but absolute. "Then we intervene again." No one doubted it. The Alliance fleet commander looked out at the stars, stars that felt calmer now, steadier than they had any right to be. "You could have ruled us," he said quietly. "Yes," the Terran replied. "Why didn't you?" The Terran's answer was not heroic, not grand. "Because we remember what it's like to be small," the human said. "And afraid. And desperate enough to laugh at danger instead of face it." Silence followed. No fear this time. Respect. The Terran fleet began to power down secondary systems, their work nearly complete. The stabilization field held, gentle and vast. "You laughed at our tiny fleet," the Terran commander said one final time. "Because you saw ships." The human's gaze swept across the chamber. "You never saw the line we were holding." The channel closed. The Terran ships remained, for now, but everyone understood the truth. Humanity had not arrived to fight a war. They had arrived because the galaxy was about to break. And for the first time in recorded history, The Alliance fleet understood something far more terrifying than human weapons. Humanity has been saving them, and had almost decided to stop. The Alliance fleet did not celebrate. There was no cheer, no relief, no declaration of victory. Even the most disciplined crews felt it. That hollow space where triumph was supposed to live, but didn't. Because nothing had been won. Something had been revealed. Across the command nexus, the fleet commander stood alone at the central projection, staring at a galaxy that now felt fragile in a way he had never understood before. Not weak, fragile. Like a structure that only stayed upright because someone had quietly braced it from behind. And that someone was leaving. The Terran ships remained in position, but the signs were unmistakable. Power signatures were tapering. Stabilization anchors were shifting to passive modes. Systems were being handed over, piece by piece, not withdrawn violently but released. Humanity was preparing to step back. The intelligence officer broke the silence. "Commander, several core empires are requesting an emergency conclave." "On what terms?" he asked. She hesitated. "They want to speak to the Terrans directly." That, alone, would have been unthinkable hours ago. "Open a joint channel," the commander said. "All flags. No hierarchy." The projection expanded. One by one, representatives appeared, beings who ruled thousands of worlds, who commanded fleets that once terrified entire regions of space. They did not posture. They did not threaten. They waited. The Terran commander appeared last. Still calm. Still unadorned. Still unmistakably human. "You asked for this," Terran said evenly. One of the oldest rulers in the Alliance spoke first. His voice carried the weight of centuries, and something else. Humility. "You have shown us the truth," the ruler said. "And we understand now what we failed to see." The Terran did not respond. The ruler continued. "You stabilized regions we fought over. You prevented wars we would have escalated. You endured our mockery, and still protected us." A pause. "We are not asking you to rule us." Several commanders exchanged uneasy glances. "We are asking you to stay." The silence that followed was heavy. The Terran commander studied the gathered leaders. "That is not a small request." "We know," the ruler replied. "We offer full authority, shared governance, veto power over conflict escalation, a permanent seat beyond challenge." It was more than any empire had ever offered another species. It was a submission disguised as a partnership. The fleet commander felt his breath catch. This was the moment history would pivot toward dependency or dominance. The Terran commander did not answer immediately. Instead, the human asked a question. "What happens when we disagree?" The ruler hesitated. Then, we would defer." "And when will we intervene?" the Terran asked. "We would comply." "And when you resent us?" the Terran continued quietly. No one answered. The Terran nodded slowly. "Then you would rebel." "Not today. Not tomorrow. But eventually." The human's gaze hardened, not in anger, but certainty. "We will not become your ceiling," the Terran said. "And we will not become your excuse." A murmur rippled through the conclave. "Then what do you propose?" another ruler asked. The Terran raised a hand, and new data flooded the shared space. Frameworks, protocols, structures, not commands, responsibilities. "These systems," the Terran said, "cannot be run by us alone. They require consensus, transparency, consequence." The fleet commander leaned forward. "You're offering us your tools." "Yes," the Terran replied. "Not our control." The rulers studied the projections, expressions shifting from disbelief to unease. "With these," one ruler said slowly, "we could stabilize our own borders." "You would have to," Terran said. "And if we misuse them?" another asked. The Terran's voice was steady. "Then we return." That was all. No threat, no spectacle, just a boundary. The fleet commander realized something then, something that made his chest tighten. This was the offer no empire had ever made. Humanity was giving up absolute advantage in exchange for shared responsibility. Not because they had to, because they chose to. A younger delegate spoke, voice trembling. "Why trust us now?" Terran's answer was simple. "Because you're afraid," the human said. "And fear means you finally understand the cost." The conclave fell silent. One by one, rulers nodded, not in agreement, but in acceptance. They had no leverage, only choice. The oldest ruler spoke again. "If we accept, what happens next?" The Terran commander looked out past the projections, toward the waiting stars. "We leave," the human said. Not entirely. Not forever. But enough. A ripple of unease spread. You'll abandon us? Someone demanded. No, Terran replied. We'll stop holding the line alone. The fleet commander swallowed. And if we fail? The Terran looked back at him. Then you will fail knowing it was your responsibility, the human said. Not ours. The agreement was reached without ceremony. No treaties signed. No oaths sworn. Only systems activated, slowly transferring control, authority, and burden to hands that had never held it before. The Terran ships began their withdrawal almost immediately. Not in retreat. Not in triumph. In trust. As the human fleet pulled back from its anchoring positions, the galaxy held its breath. The stabilization held. Hyperlanes remained calm. Radiation storms stayed quiet. The system did not fracture. The galaxy did not collapse. It stood. The fleet commander watched the Terran flagship drift away, smaller now, less imposing than ever. And yet, I finally understand, he murmured. The intelligence officer looked at him. Understand what? Why did they only send one ship? He said. She followed his gaze. They didn't need more. The commander continued. They were never here to fight us. No, she said softly. They were here to see if we could stand without them. The Terran fleet vanished into the dark, not with engines flaring, not with banners raised, but quietly, deliberately. Behind them, the galaxy remained, unprotected, unruled, and for the first time in its long, violent history, accountable. The galaxy did not fall apart. That was the first surprise. In the cycles after the Terran fleet withdrew, no great catastrophe followed. No sudden collapse of hyperlanes. No wave of wars igniting across old borders. The stars did not scream. Space did not tear. Instead, there was something far more unsettling. Responsibility. The Alliance fleets dispersed slowly, cautiously, like animals stepping away from a fire that had kept them warm longer than they realized. Commanders returned to their territories with systems they did not fully understand and authority they could no longer blame on anyone else. For the first time in galactic history, there was no higher power to provoke, no external threat to unite against, no distant species to mock, only themselves. In the first months, mistakes were made. A minor border clash flared between two rival empires. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to test the new stabilization frameworks humanity had left behind. The systems responded instantly, not by shutting down fleets or erasing ships, but by forcing transparency. Every maneuver was visible. Every escalation carried a cost that could not be hidden. The war died in committee rooms instead of space. That alone terrified the old generals. Across academic networks, analysts began revisiting everything they thought they knew about humans. Old footage resurfaced. Old jokes. Old dismissals. The laughter in the council chamber became infamous. A moment replayed endlessly in history archives, not for its humor, but for its blindness. Children across dozens of species learned a new phrase, translated imperfectly into hundreds of languages. The tiny fleet. It was no longer a joke. It was a warning. The fleet commander, once the loudest voice in the chamber, resigned his post quietly. Not in disgrace. In understanding. He took an advisory role instead, teaching restraint to officers who had been raised on doctrines of dominance. You don't win by being stronger, he told them. You win by knowing when strength ends. Some listened. Some didn't. Those who didn't found themselves isolated. Not punished, not attacked, but unsupported. Trade routes rerouted around them. Joint operations excluded them. The galaxy had learned, slowly but unmistakably, that cooperation was now the strongest currency. And humanity? Humanity vanished. Not literally. Terran ships still traveled trade lanes. Human ambassadors still attended councils. Earth still spun quietly around its star. But the humans who had arrived with the tiny fleet, the ones who bent space and rewrote assumptions, were gone. No one could track where they went. Sensors occasionally detected impossible signatures far beyond charted space. A distortion here. A stabilization anomaly there. Just enough to remind the galaxy that someone was still watching. Not guarding. Watching. Years passed. Then decades. The systems humanity had left behind aged. Some were improved upon. Others were abandoned. A few failed catastrophically when misused, and the consequences were brutal but fair. When that happened, the Terrans did not return. Not once. And that, more than any weapon, reshaped galactic behavior. Because everyone now understood the truth, humanity would intervene only when the galaxy proved it had learned nothing. One final council session, many years later, gathered the surviving representatives of the old alliance. The chamber was quieter now, smaller, less ornate. No laughter echoed in its halls. The new fleet commander, a younger being, raised on the stories rather than the pride, stood before the assembly. "We have one final item," he said. "A historical vote." The room stirred. "A motion has been raised," he continued, "to formally classify the Terran encounter." Several delegates shifted uneasily. "As a war," one suggested. "No," another replied. "There were no battles." "As a first contact incident." "They were already known." "As an intervention," someone offered. Silence followed. Then an old scholar spoke, voice thin but steady. "No," she said. "It was none of those." The room turned to her. "It was a lesson," she continued. "One we were fortunate enough to survive." The vote passed without objection. In the official archives of the galaxy, the event was recorded under a new classification. Correction event. No mention of victory. No mention of defeat. Just a correction. On Earth, a human historian watched the broadcast in silence. Around him, students waited, curious, expectant. "Is that it?" one asked. "Is that the end of the story?" The historian smiled faintly. "No," he said. "That was the beginning." He gestured to a star map, one far older than the galaxy's new order, marked with faint lines and quiet symbols. "We didn't save them because we're better," he said. "We saved them because we remember being worse." A student frowned. "Why only one ship?" The historian chuckled softly. "Because sending more would have made it look like conquest," he replied. "And we weren't there to win." Outside the classroom, Earth's skies were calm. Ships came and went. Humanity continued as it always had, building, arguing, creating, forgetting. But somewhere far beyond the maps, a Terran vessel drifted alone in deep space. Old, unmarked, patient. Its systems hummed softly, maintaining balances no one else even knew existed. Waiting, not for the galaxy to fail, but for it to forget. And if that day ever came, the galaxy knew exactly what would happen next. They would laugh again, and then they would pay.